All right, here we go again. Buckle up. Rough roads ahead. We'll try to smooth those rough roads out. So there's a lot going on and a lot to understand. When a police officer, and again, ICE officers are police officers. An ICE officer, if he observes a crime that he's allowed to enforce, there's a lot of crimes. Again, as a law enforcement officer, he's allowed to enforce. An ICE officer can pull you over if he'd have to call a city officer, and they're not going to do it generally, but they could just pull you over if they observe a crime or for even a dangerous traffic infraction. I don't think anybody would ever pull you over for just, minor speeding or running a red light. But if he noticed you were swerving, let's say, an ICE officer could pull you over, and of course, he would call a city officer or a state officer. So again, let's get that out of the way. ICE officers, deportation officers, the ones on the street, they are federal law enforcement officers. And they're allowed to even pull you over for a crime or for a traffic infraction. And again, they're not going to pull you over for speeding, but if they observe something very dangerous, like you swerving, almost hitting somebody, and they believe you're drunk, they can pull you over and call a city cop. So we get that out of the way. Police officers routinely investigate crimes, go into structures without warrants. And all it requires is something. Like, why are you going in? If it's business related, because I'm not even going to say reasonable suspicion, probable cause, because every day somebody says, oh, over in there, the guy's in there, and they walk in because they believe, again, that's reasonable suspicion or something like that, or probable cause, but they'll just walk in because they're in the middle of an investigation and they're doing their job. But the idea where those officers in Missouri shouldn't have, again, whether they shot the guy justly or not, whether there was justification for it, I didn't even go there. I just wanted to get that first argument out of the way. In Missouri, they were on that property. They had a right to be on that property. You're conducting an investigation. They weren't there messing around. They weren't there to try to oppress the person. They were just there because that's how it's done. You have to, because there was a couple hours has nothing to do with it. Because a couple hours before, they didn't know he was there. So it wasn't like they were doing something other than trying to finish up the investigation. Right. So ICE officers routinely go places where there's without a warrant. All they need is information. Right. They can't necessarily bust into your house without specific information. Again, that requires additional. In fugitive investigations, the Marshal Service, if we think somebody's inside, we get to go inside. There are requirements to go inside. It's a little different than just a regular investigation. Again, the body of the fugitive is our authority to enter premises or knowing that the fugitive is in there. The same thing with ICE. There's no doubt there were undocumented immigrants in there. There's nothing that can stop them at that point. And I think it was a public place anyway. It's like a store or something. So when a police officer comes on the scene, what does a police officer do? He identifies everybody. She identifies everyone. That's all they're doing. Now, when the fact that they questioned his identity, you don't know what that means. I realize you're not a cop. You've never been in investigations. That tells me they're verifying his identity. That's how you do it. That's one of the ways to do it. Again, if you ask enough people, and again, ICE asks a ton of people about their identity. They find false identity. They see real identity. They know what people with real identity respond when you ask them about identity. Right. So everybody knows this one. So I'm not I'm not putting a secret out there. If I ask you about your identity and you immediately look to the ground or look away from me, I'm going to question your identity again. So if they question his identity and he looks him square in the eye and says, I swear I was in the Army or I was in the Navy or whatever it was, that's my VA ID, whatever it is, then they go, okay. See, so actually what they're actually doing is the reverse of what you're saying. They're not really questioning his identity, even though they are. They're verifying his identity. Some people, that's all it takes. You think, if this isn't real identity, and they look at the ground and go, you're right, or something like that. Where'd you get it? So again, that's the way law enforcement works. I don't approve of any type of abuse. So again, if anything happens abusive, I knew a wrong identity, but again, it doesn't sound like it's like a wrong deportation. Years ago, that mentally ill guy was deported, and he spent some time in Mexico before he got back into the United States. And he just didn't know, he just didn't know how to respond. And they were a little aggressive. Again, you got to be careful when you're aggressive with people that might have some psychological disorder. Right. And even if somebody looks away when you ask them about their identity, you still have to further investigate, because they could just had a bad experience around identity. It might flash back to a DWI or something. When another cop asked them for the identity, or maybe they're having sex in the back of the car and a cop asked them for the identity. When you say it, it triggers their mind. So you have to read, what's happening. But in the absence of that, I believe that we don't have enough. I think I asked that we purchase these things before. We need some positive ID in the field. And again, every team should have one. They go, oh, that's expensive. Uncle Elon, out of here. We have the money. We'll find it. Elon tells us, Larry, you don't have the money. You have the money for those ID things. Elon already, miser in our budget. So in the bigger picture of what we spent all these years and what we spend on these operations and deportations and everything, those positive ID devices aren't that expensive. And again, what I'm doing now is I'm preparing the way for you to mass purchase it, because I'm justifying it in the metaphysics. So we want our people to be able to, our teams to walk in there with the best equipment possible. Again, maybe not the most expensive, but the best equipment possible would say that they have something that can access the FBI database. And I was wondering if he was in there. He was a military guy, and I think the VA is doing some fingerprinting now. Pretty much, I know I got a license somewhere and I had a fingerprint. I can't remember where it was, but I remember, I think it was Oklahoma. They asked me to do a fingerprint or a thumbprint or something. I don't know if that ties in. I think it does. Right. So again, it looks like it's a clean operation. It's the same thing as a cop questioning somebody. Cops question people's ID all the time. They, is this really you? Where do you live? How long do you live there? That kind of thing. It's the same process. Now again, obviously, he's Latino, so we might have to. The white guy said they didn't question his ID. Again, there's a reason for that, because if you're detaining Latino immigrants, then that's your focus. I mean, it's common sense, right? Now, as far as the white guy having who is the white guy, that he maybe should have been questioned. Again, hindsight being 2020. We don't know who the white guy is. And we need to know who the white guy is. And there's a reason we need to know about the white guy. And we even need to know about the guy from Puerto Rico, even though he's a U.S. citizen. ICE entered an establishment that contained undocumented immigrants. And that's my term. You can say aliens if you want, but it involved undocumented immigrants. And obviously they probably knew this maybe a week ago. I don't know. They knew somewhere along the way, they developed intelligence that this place existed. They may have been in there themselves on the cover, purchasing food, noticing who was in there, or doing whatever. We don't know who anybody is in there. White guy, black guy, red guy, blue guy. Even if a cop was in there, we should know why the cop's in there. If the cop was doing something. Because the way the coyotes work, it's not all, I call them coyotes because there's coyotes all over this country. There's people that take that money, to collect money. It's racketeering, but it's everywhere. here in this city, there's people that represent the coyotes, and the undocumented people here in this city, they're it's like a racketeering operation. If they say you got to pay protection, you got to pay protection. If you got to pay back something, they can even lend you money, like a loan shark type of thing. I know it's here. It's everywhere. So again, this is the other thing we're trying to get rid of, the racketeering. As it's mostly against immigrants, but that's going on. There's bosses here, corrupt bosses, criminal bosses, that if they tell you pay protection, then you pay protection. If they say you don't get a job, then you don't get a job. They say you get a job, you get a job. So when we go into that establishment, they just told on the agents if this really happened. Like they interviewed the guy. He said, I'm white, and they didn't ask me for ID. Well, they messed up because he may be the one who actually gets the fake ID or does something like that. So we actually have to know everybody in that establishment and rule them out as being part of like some sort of coyote operation or something like that. So the idea that they didn't ask the white guy is a mistake from every point of view. Again, we should be equally interviewing people. However, of course, if we're looking for Latino immigrants, then we would probably look at the Latino people or people that we believe to be Latino. Again, years ago, it was Judge Rosenberg, the magistrate. He said something in court that he said, I don't care. If you're looking for a Martian, then of course you're going to look at a Martian. They're like, hey, you must know Elon, huh? So he didn't believe in he believed profiling to a certain degree, but not just across the board. So again, that's an accusation of profiling. So again, there may be an adjustment of policy to say, hey, they're right, they're wrong, but right. There's a reason for us to know everybody in the establishment. And it could have been an oversight. Maybe somebody thought he was ID. Again, the metaphysics are really strange because so many people come against it. They want that opportunity. So the people that are actually against deportation may be in your mind as an ICE officer, and you think somebody was ID'd and they weren't ID'd, and it's the white guy. Right? Well, there is justification. You can justify only asking Latino immigrants for their ID, because if that's where you are and that's what you're looking for, and that's what you're looking for. But yeah, he could have been an immigrant from Latvia or something. So again, that was an error. Probably they need to, take that man's name down if they have it and investigate what that person's ties to the thing is. You may be running a stash house, right, for immigrants. So it was an error. Right? Or they may have known who he was. That's the other part. I guess then it wouldn't be. Well, because they could have already been in there, and they could have already identified everybody that works there. But I guess that guy worked there, and they didn't specifically know who he was. So, and again, there's several reasons why that could happen. So again, the Hollywood lawyer stuff doesn't work. In fact, they've been nice all along. I brought it up years ago. They can actually charge people all the time with obstruction, and they don't generally. Right. It's pretty tight. Their stuff's pretty tight. It's just like looking for a fugitive. It's so much easier than just basic investigation. It actually is. Because investigation, you have to dot your I's and cross your T's a little bit more than you do in ICE and in Marshal Service fugitive investigation. And then once, by the nature of the fugitive or by the nature of the undocumented immigrant being somewhere, then that's all the justification you needed. That proves that your presence is lawful. So once you get to that point, then anything before that is, maybe you could make a kind of a case, but not really. Most times the people go in to look for a fugitive or an undocumented immigrant, they already have intelligence that the person's in there. When you do a normal, like an average investigation, you got to do a lot more than just, the body, the habeas corpus. So again, you could be right, kind of, if you were thinking about an FBI investigation of some sorts. or a local police or state police investigation. But when you get to detainee, detaining an undocumented immigrant, detaining a fugitive, it's a little bit different. I mean, they still have rights. I'm not denying that people have rights. And again, there's a lot of reasons why somebody might not be identified. Maybe that they were already identified. Maybe they did check to see if he was running the stash house. Well, because when you go in there, you don't know who it could be. The guy sweeping the ground, so the floor. It could be that could be the boss. You don't know who anybody is. The guy sweeping the ground might be running a stash house. So again, the mayor is a little bit off base on how it works. Could the officer have been racist? Yes and no. In fact, if the officer didn't know who that person was, then the officer messed up because they need to know. Again, from the higher level of ICE, they have to send something down and say, make sure we're identifying everybody. And again, you don't have to re-identify somebody just because they're mad because you didn't identify them. Just make sure you had identified that person because you may have already done it. Right? Because when you're dealing with a bunch of different, or you're dealing with a community of undocumented immigrants, you have a white guy in there. You're going to check out the white guy because this could be the guy that's the go-between. This is the guy that actually sets up things for them because he's a U.S. citizen. So a lot of times in these organizations, there's a couple U.S. citizens, there's even a police officer. If we saw a police officer in there a couple times, we'd investigate that police officer because maybe he's providing unlawful protection for these people, like above, kind of like hiding crime and stuff like that, right? And giving information out. So he may have been actually checked out because he was white. They may actually know everything about him. But that might not have been the first time in there, and they may have had an informant that was in there. I don't know. But again, just to remind everybody to identify, and again, they could have just missed him too. They thought they identified him. So again, we just make sure everybody's identified. And you don't have to. You don't have to like walk in and identify somebody that you just did an investigation on. But again, sometimes it's better to do that way so you don't raise any suspicion of how you do it. Other than, I guess I shouldn't be telling them. But everybody knows. Everybody watches television. They know how it's done. There's just nothing wrong with. I don't believe there's anything wrong with what they did. They don't need a warrant to begin with. They may even had a warrant somewhere. They don't have to show you the warrant. They really don't. Again, by the presence of undocumented immigrants, ICE is lawfully there. That's generally how it works. It's just an easy way to say it. So that's that. I don't have a lot of power on my phone here. Well, it sucks. I hate, like, even marshals. You can go and do 1,000 fugitive arrests, and then 1,001, you just want to cry at the whole situation. You just don't want to be there. You want to shrink. I mean, it's just in every law enforcement, it's that way. So again, you have a job. You have to, like abortion. I told you about abortion clinics. When I went into the Marshal Service, they showed us that video. It was like the first video they ever developed. And I said, "Whoa, wait a minute." I was kind of pro-life. I was adamantly against. My youngest daughter doesn't even know that I saved her life, and I don't know if my wife would have aborted her or not. But I wasn't going to let that happen. I was being asked to abort my second daughter. No good deed goes unpunished. She's like, hates me. And I said, no way, no way. I said, well, you don't have money. I said, well, we'll starve together. That's just how it's going to work if we don't have money. And I have faith that God would give us money. And God did, but, they killed us. They killed my entire family. And we're alive by the grace of God. And that's how that works, because they really did kill us. We should all be dead with what they used against us. So I watched this video and I was like, I got to think about this. This is something I I never knew I was going to have to arrest Christians singing hymns. But the fact is, God was with me, and it came to the point that they were in a place they weren't supposed to be. And again, if Trump pardons somebody and he pardons them, I didn't even look at the case, so I'm not really alluding to that. But as far as being a law enforcement officer, I had to get to the point of view that it was unchristian-like to be where they were. I mean, if you're not supposed to be somewhere and you're a Christian, like that's how you're supposed to do it. If you're going to go someplace like an abortion clinic, and again, now it's known that it's unlawful, but back then, I don't know. It wasn't such a big, it wasn't big news until a certain point. So you do your hymns, and when the officers say move on, then you move on. Because you have a direct order from the law enforcement officer to move on. That's what a Christian's supposed to do. But again, there's no reason to be there. Go somewhere else and pray. I guarantee you'll stop more abortions by simply going into your prayer closet and praying than protesting at an abortion clinic. It's a feel-good thing to go to an abortion clinic and protest with a bunch of other people. It's not a biblical thing. So I made the conscious decision, that if the Christian was right, they wouldn't be there. Maybe, Rabbi Yeshua and David, Jesus could have been standing next to me saying, this is the point of view. I never authorized abortion clinic protests. In fact, they're supposed to go into their prayer closet and pray. That's what I told them to do. So yeah, that is what it is. Exciting days ahead. So again, we do have good numbers coming out as far as deportations. The air wings up in the air. Mr. Ratcliffe is at work. I just want to say this. I understand the plight of the Palestinian as far as, again, you have to be able to look at both sides and understand the situation. Again, I never condone any of the violence, but I understand what psychology does to sociology and psychology is, and what bad psychology and bad sociology does to a community in their mind. From the beginning, we needed to bring the Palestinian Authority in. The progression that I saw, and back even in 2007, that I desired was for them to be strengthened, for them to recognize Israel and for Israel to recognize them, and then one day for there to be joint operations. You'll find that a lot in what I say, like Russia and the United States, joint operations. Because that's how you get forward of it. So the goal for Israel should be one day the Palestinian Authority is a legitimate government. And I'm not saying they're illegitimate, but they're inexperienced at normal government operations at the level that other governments are. So again, what you do is you help them, train them, you help them attain certain benchmarks. And then one day, when there's an operation at some camp, the IDF or Shin Bet or police department from Israel moves in with the Palestinian Authority, and they work together. And they arrest people together. That should be the goal. That would have ensured that October 7th never happened. Right? J6. Yes, J6 and October 7th, right? Well, I don't think it's October 7th or October 6th. So God's doing something by you all naming it like that. It makes it, it's just a weird world that we're living in. I'm not saying one's evil, one's not. I'm not saying anything like that. Again, there's probably a metaphysical tie. So the goal was for the Palestinian government to improve itself to the point that we could trust the Palestinians. Now, there's Jews that don't want that to happen. There's no doubt. And there's no doubt that they scumbag that. Who they are and where they are, I don't know for sure. But I mean, I think that would be a day that would draw tears from the entire, both nations, both peoples. That the government of Israel and the government of the Palestinians works together to bring peace and security and safety to the region in joint operations. Because then it's over, right? Or maybe a little something could happen, but mostly it's over. And that's the key, getting over it, not allowing it to happen again. Again, I think Mr. Putin, hopefully it wasn't just a KGB persona, but I think he said what he should say. That we need to get past this, that we need to understand respect of one another. So again, when he says that, we as a nation have an obligation to respond. Say, yeah, that's what we're talking about. Let's go do it. I shouldn't care. Again, I'm not liberal, I'm not conservative. I believe everybody has a right to exist to a certain degree. I don't even want the death penalty. It's disgusting. I never, I used to be joking about the death penalty. I mean, I wasn't like, kill that person, but I was like, George Maladon, the hanging judge's marshal. We used to have posters in the marshal service. I think I even had one. My wife probably ended up with it. It's worth money, I guess. It's a classic poster, right? So again, I wasn't, but after they tried to kill me, and after they took out my family, and after John Luna killed himself, and I think stuff was, Bosnia-Herzegovina, the information was coming out about that. I was like, no more. And, it just, again, Hashem woke me up and said, killing is killing. If you justify killing because that person's a criminal, they'll justify killing because you're a cop. And it's the same justification. Because Hashem never justified, there's no justification from Hashem, from God. When you look at, remember the first murderer, Cain and Abel. So what did he do with Cain? He didn't kill Cain, did he? No, the Bible tells us that he marked him, but he didn't kill him. So again, I find Christians to be a strange lot of people. Israel was once like that. They were a little bit more accepting of things. But again, the forces that want that battle to go on caused additional bad blood between the Palestinians and the Jews and Israel post that time period. There was a lot of interest in Israel in rehabilitation of Palestinians and rehabilitation of criminals, and that's kind of going by the wayside. And has it made it better? It hasn't. I mean, October, what's that date? October 6th, right? J6. October 7th. Oh, yeah, that's right. 7th, right? J6 and October 7th. So October would be what? 10/7? Actually, you know what? 10/7. I brought that up before. It's in the Bible. I think it's around the angel of Philadelphia, the seventh angel. It's in the Revelation, that number. Am I right? Is that the number? J6, 10/7. Or 06. Or is it? No, the 07. So again, this is the only thing that's going to sustain us. This is the only thing that's going to carry us forward, for us to dream big and do it big. That's the only way. And that dream and doing it big was available in 2007. I suspect somebody backed the Hamas in there to ruin the plan. Some spy entity. So again, it's very simple. We can back the Palestinian Authority and improve their government so that they are a government, on par with Israel. And we can, keep that peace. And again, I'm not saying we just arrest Palestinians. Settler goes in there, the Palestinian Authority, and the IDF or the Palestinian Authority and Shin Bet or whoever it is, they come in. Yeah, they should have their own Shin Bet. The idea is you showed everybody all the Palestinians and the Arabs in IDF, but again, it's not the same thing. I don't, again, the idea of this two-state solution makes sense, but I don't think that needs to be the focus, and I think I said that from the beginning. If we get there, we get there, and I believe it's a good idea. Well, you could actually get to a point where a two-state solution isn't necessary. That requires a lot of things that we didn't do over the last 15 years. We do have the Palestinian Authority, and there's two states in Israel, essentially. So it's still Israel, but you have the state, the state of Palestine and the state of Israel within, which is really what it is right now. There's nothing wrong with that, like Pennsylvania and New York. Now, as far as what they don't get to own this, they don't get to own that. Once we get to the point that we understand what's wrong and we fix it, it's not going to matter. And I think a lot of the hostage families and a lot of the protesters are at that point. And again, not to the point of just being a liberal peacenik. The point of understanding that no matter what it is, it's enough. No more of it. We don't have to identify it. We don't have to know anything about it. We don't have to say anything about being liberal or conservative. We say that's not the way, and that's obvious. I mean, Netanyahu can recover. He can say, look, what happened, and let's put it behind us and go forward. And it's a hard thing to do for both sides. But again, was my dream with Hashem. That one day the Palestinian Authority would be a legitimate government, and there would be, operations together. You want to put Hamas out, all you got to do is all you had to do, again, it used to be Fatah, now I guess they don't even use that name, they just use Palestinian Authority now. But, was to put Hamas out and put Fatah in. You put Fatah in, and then you push Hamas out with Fatah and IDF. Because the Palestinian people would understand that. That would mean something to them. I mean, they would shed a tear. They see them side by side, protecting the people of Palestine. And we get to the point, well, Palestine doesn't exist, Palestinian doesn't exist. Well, yeah, probably most of them are Jews. Israelites. They're promised property under the Moses clause in the scriptures. Now I can tell. Hashem reveals Jews sometimes, and he's revealed. I think that girl that you arrested, the young girl with the big mouth, and she used to dress the IDF down. I think she's a big Jew. I think she's probably Jewish royalty. I could be wrong, but because you can see her affecting them. She has power. Kind of a Queen Esther type. But see, that's who Jews are. That's who we really are. We would become Palestinian just to protect the Palestinian, because that's what the Torah says. Now, are there evil Palestinians? Yeah, there's evil Palestinians, there's evil Jews. It's the funny part when you get into those conversations. Nobody wants to recognize that they have evil amongst them. They go, oh, there's evil over there. Yeah, but there's evil Jews, evil non-Jews, evil Palestinians, evil Islamic, evil Confucianisms, Buddhisms, Islamisms. So again, we need to figure out what's going on in this nation, and that's what the deportations are about. I mean, some people they hate foreigners. I've yelled at foreigners, but that's to rule them maybe in the right direction. Again, if you don't yell at somebody sometimes, then they get in more trouble. Again, Trump was in a lot of trouble doing a lot of wrong stuff, and he went through 4 years of punishment, and now he's out of it. Well, like I said, I believe Trump inside said something. Maybe to God, I don't know. He made certain decisions that helped him come out of where he was. Again, it's biblical, actually. So again, we need to get a handle on what's going on. Again, Newark. It's funny. I was just speaking about Newark. You see how that works? Speaking about immigrants in Newark, and I was on their stoop, and I was passing out, and but I know in Newark there's people in bondage. Okay, I know there's racketeering. I know there's immigrant racketeering oppressing other immigrants in Newark. So the only way for us to manage that is to reduce the numbers. And then we can account for people better. I mean, there's immigrants that know they can go off and just kill one of the other immigrants and dump the body somewhere, and that's it. Nobody would ever know as long as you dispose of the body. I mean, even if they're on a roster, who's gonna investigate it? Like, they sign in, I'm in the United States, and then Biden says, okay, go. They're just out there. Right. Plenty of immigrants don't show up to all sorts of hearings. There's no accountability. They could be in a horror house. We wouldn't even know. So we need to regain our accountability of who's here. And in what's going to happen, people are going to be liberated. We're going to find people that are in bondage, and they're going to be liberated. Again, remember, speak to them. Try to get some information. If you need to. So again, you have to clarify this one. I don't even know where it is, I guess, at this point. Well, President Trump said there's no amnesty or something. But you have to remind him that we have law enforcement. You have to figure out where the law enforcement programs are. We need them to keep going. We need to be able to give somebody amnesty that helps us, find a narcotics operation, that kind of thing, prostitution thing. We need to be able to say, if you help us, we can help you at that level. So you need to clarify that with the White House. And I guess, yeah, because there's a couple people, I guess the director of Border Patrol, deputy director, so I guess ICE could do the same thing. Well, you submit I guess you would. Maybe that's what it is. You have to submit the application to a certain level, a director level or something. I don't know. Right. Because I guess it's not only going to be Border Patrol. I mean, you can approve amnesty from the director level of the other agencies, I imagine, or some of the other agencies. So you have to clarify it. I would clarify that, and just apprise the White House. Make sure that they know that you have an amnesty program to gain informant information, so that we can find all the things that we look for. Because it's not only about immigrants. They tell us a lot of different things. So that needs to stay on. We can't shut that one. That's the one that everybody worries about getting shut down. Because when you shut that down, it's a lot harder to solve crimes. And it's actually a lot harder to find the immigrant operations where we're talking like coyotes and stash houses and things like that, and prostitution rings. That's actually a very useful tool, and actually at this point it becomes more useful because the connection between law enforcement and immigrant community becomes more strained. So we need some incentive. Again, also cash incentives and things like that. But at least he wasn't deported or anything like that. It sounds like they were just questioning his identity, and that's just a second nature for somebody that's in ICE, right? It actually, again, it's almost the reverse of the way it was represented. They were verifying his identity. Because if he had to give off some weird vibes, they'd have said, BS, right? And they'll say BS just to see how you react. And like I tell you, I swear to God, some people, they just fold. You go, it's not real. You're right. You may not even know. You just say it and they fold. Right. Thank you, sir. So, well, I don't think they were questioning his documents. They were verifying it by by body language. I might be wrong, but that's generally what it looks like. And he might, if it wasn't real, he would have said, he might have said, no, it's not. I'm sorry. I got that from my brother. Thank you, Arch. So it is what it is. But these are the type of things that we need to keep looking at, and we need to keep explaining. So Kristi Noem's up there now. We need a public information operation around this, explaining the necessity to account for everybody that's here. Again, Homan does his thing, and then we need a kind of a good cop to explain some of the other sides of it. Well, because that's the way Homan needs to be. He needs to be the bad cop. Well, the pressure needs to be on, and people need to help us, and that's one of the things we do. And again, it also slows down the surges because they don't want to deal with Homan. Well, I told Biden he was doing it wrong. I helped him, and my system is still golden. I told on how to do it, but you have to be responsible about how many you're letting in, and then you have to make sure everybody gets to work. And again, Trump doesn't want them to work, but if they're here, they need to work. Again, it's worse for them not to work. And again, they made incentive not to work. I mean, the way I understand it, you get a bus fare anywhere in the country, you can just travel. I mean, it could be a life of leisure as long as you had some sort of way to have income. Just hop on a bus and go to a new city, and spend a week in a new city, go somewhere else. But I guess it wasn't that easy, sheltering, and you got to find shelter. But again, if you're a gang member, you could probably, and that's maybe what they're doing. You got to make sure, that's something I feel like they might be doing. I think I brought it before, moving between cities. It's more difficult to ID people and notice people that might be what they call out of pocket, not in the right place when they travel a lot. When you're a cop, you're on patrol, you keep seeing these people, right? But if you see somebody for a week and they're gone, then you don't think about them, right? Unless something comes up about them, then you kind of think back. So traveling is a way of staying anonymous, especially if you can just go in with some fake name and say I'm from some Spanish country in South America, and then off you go on a bus trip. I know, if I was an immigrant and I didn't have a place to stay, that's what I do. I do the bus shuffle. Because you stay warm while you're on the bus. And I just go south. Oh, it's getting cold. Let's go south. Well, realistically, if you're a young, healthy person, you could camp. Even if they tell you can't camp, like in Florida during the winter, southern Texas. New Mexico, I guess, southern New Mexico, I think stays kind of warm. So far, things are at least showing that there's a certain effort, and the effort is bearing fruit. Yes, there's people being detained, but again, there's something illegal going on there. Again, it's against the law. And that's just the cop comes in, crime's going on, the cop IDs everybody, tries to clear people. And then if they get handed an ID, they might say a few things about that ID just to verify that based upon body language and responses as to whether it's all legitimate. So it's the same thing. What do they do is they try to like take ICE and take it out of law enforcement. Like, what are they doing there? Well, it's actually ICE is it's actually easier to be an ICE person than a cop, like a regular cop. I guess to a certain, a lot of cop have a lot of authority just because they're managing everyday calls. But like an investigator, a normal investigator, it's a lot more difficult. Marshal Service and ICE, when you do fugitive operations and detention or detaining or not detaining, alien operations, immigrant, undocumented. That helps explain it because alien, everybody's an alien. I guess it's not undocumented immigrants or undocumented aliens. I guess they would say. It just explains it better, and it's not in a non-offensive term. So that's why I use. I just Hashem gave it to me years ago. Undocumented immigrant is probably the best way to speak about it, so that you don't offend one side or the other. So I think the next goal would be to increase the ability to quickly identify people if you can with a fingerprint. And I mean should be down to each operation. It shouldn't be like one for 150 agents. Like it's like this. They carry this stun. You got to find something that they can actually carry in a pouch or something if it can. I don't know what's all out there. I haven't looked. Like the stun gun. Stun them by okay, now give me your fingerprint. No. Well, when he gives us that ID, we tell him to give us a fingerprint, and then he doesn't have to do it, but I'm sure he would have did it, right? And as far as not identifying one person and another, the other person may have actually been investigated completely. That person may have been investigated for for the last 3 months. They may have followed that guy. They come there and act like they don't know who he is, but they probably know him, right? Don't forget, you got a doctor's appointment next week. I sure hope your kid wins the football championship. It gets to be that. So you think a cop, like the investigator, comes in and doesn't know anything? Cop knows that they know everything. It just might be that guy hadn't been cleared for whatever reason. And again, you can miss identifying people. But when it comes to fugitive operations, when it comes to undocumented immigrant operations, the bar is lower on a lot of, I wouldn't say civil liberties, but it's less. There's less questions because the habeas corpus is all you need. Or the corpus, I guess. So the point is, whether they knew those specific undocumented immigrants were in there or not, I don't think they might need to know that one's in there, but the fact that they had intelligence that that's a place they frequent, they're allowed in there. And then once they find one, then the game's over. They get to identify everybody and all of that. Again, they would probably identify people anyway. So again, if you were to go to ICE, you would find that they have intelligence about what was going on in there, and maybe a few people that were in there, maybe more. I don't know. Again, remember, these are the initial operations. This is where they know something's happening. Again, they may have been looking for somebody that was a murderer. Just because the person wasn't in there doesn't mean that they didn't have an authority to be in there, or that it doesn't mean they found everybody they were looking for. So I say before, there's going to be operations where they're going to detain people that are just going to be on the periphery of what they're actually doing and who they're actually looking for. It happens in the Marshal Service too. Somebody has a warrant, you run somebody and let me check you, and then we'll let you go. You can't let them go because you have a warrant. The city car comes up and takes them away. Or sometimes, well, you have a warrant. You want to tell us where the guy is? Well, we can either walk away from here and forget that you're here, or we can call the city car, and they can take you away. Oh, he's at his mother's house? Okay. You stay here with Deputy so-and-so. We're going to the mother's house. So again, you don't care what the marshals are doing because it's not the immigrant community, right? Marshals do stuff like that all the time. It's very similar to work, actually. So again, that's the way law enforcement works. I don't think that it was that far out. Again, if you apply a pressure to somebody, they might tell you something. For all we know, that there was a prostitution ring across the street or in the next building over, and he might tell us at that point because he's worried about what's going on. So again, he's in a place where criminal activity exists. Whether you want to say it's a crime or not is neither here nor there. Yes, people that are in need are coming up here and looking for a place to live, and one day we'll be able to take care of them because the numbers will be low enough where we can. But we can't do that today. Again, we're trying to reverse what's happened so we can go back to the way it was. And we did, we do take care of a lot of people. And we have taken care of a lot of people. And we spent money that we could have spent on something else. And it is noble to a certain degree. But once it becomes this uncontrollable thing, it's no longer noble because it's not, you're actually importing what they fled. That whole type of system. So again, we know narcotics, we know prostitution, we know all the other things that are going on. Now, you as a mayor, you might have gotten kickbacks, so now you have to protect them because you took like $2 million from over the last 10 years from the immigrant community. New York. Yeah, if we do the program right, well, I say Kristi Noem because I want somebody that can project, like, and I'm not trying to be sexist, but like a motherly thing. I think that might work the best. And again, you have Latino women running in every agency and department there. So again, you might want to use one of them. I'm just feeling like the balance to home and the good cop would be a woman that can smile and and move their hearts. That had done enough to me. Jesus, they all played me. I'm trying to find a real woman. Got a bunch of agents running around me playing a game, and police officers. So again, if we do it right, we're actually going to help a lot of immigrants. And again, what's happening in Mexico? The president's setting up tents. Yeah, we're going to take care of you. We're going to receive you. Oh, now you care about them, huh? So think of what that's done. You don't see that, right? All these nations are now going to take them. Now, some of those nations, I wouldn't want to be returning. They're just haters, You might just take them out back and shoot them. I don't know. I mean, yeah, that's true. But again, the idea is to get this thing under control. Because, we can point to, all those U.S. citizens and young girls that were raped and murdered, and that is horrible. But there's also immigrant people that had that stuff done to them and is being done to them. So if we do this right, we'll have people help us clean up things along the way. And we'll find more criminal activity. We don't want to be cut out of that loop. And there's a lot of pressure. This is like, homing the bad cop has pressured them. So, and again, we're looking to take care of people and make things work for everyone. Well, we don't have the money to send to Mexico. We don't have the money to send Honduras because we sent it where? We sent it to all these people that embezzled in the United States with all these, crime gangs, foreign-based crime gangs running around. And we do have a break-in issue throughout the United States. I had a break-in issue here. It could be the Venezuelan gang members. I don't know. Oh, I'm sure I'm a target on their list. I'm on their target list. If they could kill me, they would. Believe me. If they thought they could get away with killing me, they would kill me. That's the sucky part of what all these agents did to my life. They unprotected me, but yet I still live, huh? I'd already worked before I even got to New Mexico. I'd already worked on the pill mills. I worked on the border issues. Again, I tied the pill. I think I tied the pill mill. I think it was that early. I was telling him that the border issue, you got to be proactive. You got to move to the next issue because if you stop it at the pill mill, it's going to come in from the border, and it did. I think I even told them in Florida, to set up a border security at Georgia and Alabama. What is that, Alabama? There, what's the other border? Don't let anybody in. It's like coming to the U.S. border. We got a picture of Commander. What's that guy's name? Who's the governor there? DeSantis, right. They got a picture of Commander DeSantis. They got the Florida border checkpoints. I actually suggested that. I told him, I said, once you get it really filmed, you got to put up border checkpoints. It's still going to come in. Something's going to come in. You pull up to it's like a turnpike, type of turn. But you look and there's this big photograph of smiling DeSantis. El Presidente. And the Florida Raleigh. How do you say federale combine it with Florida? Florida Rallies. No, that's not going to work. The fiddly border agents. FDLE border agents. Are you a Floridian? Are you a Floridian? Are you a Florida resident and citizen? What's your business? Well, I was for my wife. I did that for my ex-wife. They got her with the drugs, the prescriptions. First they got her with pain, then they got her with prescriptions. That's that was what made it really difficult to be able to control. Again, what it does is it reduces the inhibitions. So it really gets very difficult to manage a person if they're not doing well, right? She lost all her inhibitions. I tried. I just, we were naive people, man. We were taken advantage by doctors, and she should have received a million. She's owed millions. Right? That's, I think, part of the motivation to kill us was that there was going to be a malpractice case where she owes millions, so where she was going to pay millions. The idea is we can spend money and kill these people. Not to say there weren't other people involved. I explained how the deep state works. Right. He was a lawyer's doctor, so he's protected. So he's deep state. You're a deep state doctor. That, form of racketeering, probably. I mean, racketeering is everywhere. So I think we're doing well. We just need to keep going, and we need to get into court. They need to take us to court so we can get to that point, so we can know where we are, because we don't know where we are. And if it times wrong, then it's going to mess us up. We need to get to court before the surges. There's a good time to go to court. This month, we need to start going to court this month. I got to look back, because I think they did that to us last time. When the surges came, then they started hitting us with court process and temporary restraining orders. So we need to be prepared for that. Again, if you can't turn them around, just simply turn them around. You don't have to release a single one of them. That part's, the judge isn't going to order that. But you need to house them. I guess, was it Fort McCoy? You got to go with that type of operation. You got to start thinking about that. Again, at a certain point, what do you do? Hopefully the courts will fast track it. Remember, ask to fast track everything, because the United States does not have the finances, nor the manpower, nor the facilities to house everybody. So we need to know what to do. You're not required to release any of them. That's the bottom line, no matter what the judge says. But then again, once it mounts up above a certain point, it's going to become very difficult. Well, I think they did back remain in Mexico, so that's always available. But again, I think, like I said, I think the whole thing's going to end up. But the problem is, with a temporary restraining order, you can end up being stopped from something that the judge is going to allow later. But if the judge believes that he's going to, so again, the arguments. So you have to dissect the argument and get as much as you. If a judge is going to give you a temporary restraining order, say, Your Honor, I don't think the temporary restraining order should cover this entire thing. Only part of it. The part that that we can't fix later. The harm that might occur. But it seems like that's what they're waiting. I guess it's only been a few days, but it just seems like they're going to do something. They're going to time this thing. I guess not, but there's a ton of people in northern Mexico right now. They were on that one app. And again, the one app in the right scenario is a great tool. The problem is, if you mismanage it and mismanage the program, then it's just tomfoolery. There's nothing wrong with them, because again, the theory is that they're going to go to the authorized port of entry, and they're contacting the agency and saying, I'm interested in an appointment at that port of entry. And again, we're at a breaking point. So it's a different world. But again, I wouldn't destroy that app. I'd keep it around for later if we ever get somewhere. So again, it actually empowers and enables the idea that you should go to a point of entry. So again, there's too many people that aren't interested in legitimate work. They just want to break into people's apartments and houses, even football players. I mean, just think about how much gall that takes for an undocumented immigrant. So again, it's just blame the people that mismanage the program. If they would only let people in that would work and ensure people were working, and then when that number was enough, cut everything off, then we wouldn't be here. They may still be deporting, but not like this. Well, because these gang members wouldn't have been here. They wouldn't be just flying around on buses and doing whatever they want. Again, now he probably got big cars and trucks and everything else. I spent years like suffering from the deep state killing me and watching all these immigrants just get richer. Big trucks, 7, 8 employees. Parties, women, friends. And for all I know, they were, part of the deep state. And generally, that's the way it is, isn't it? It's how you get your stuff, right? Then Hashem shows me the sex offender. It was weird how it all unfolded. Because Hashem's telling me to look this guy up online. Because I don't look people up online. I don't want to give the deep state any type of ammunition. Right. But like I said, I was talking to this kid while I was walking, and a kid maybe 22, 23, talking about his father. His father is a good guy. He goes to church. Because when he started talking to me, I started, preaching to him a little bit. I was giving him forgiveness, getting him to forgive himself, and then I was saying, the Lord this and the other thing. Then talking about his father. I want you to meet my father. I want you to meet your father. So his father shows up, and he tries to introduce me to his father. And his father's shitty. And I already been beaten up in Tyler, Texas, and I had doubts about the community. It was before COVID. But his father looking at me like I don't know what he was looking at me like. I mean, it's just horrible. But his father's got a big pickup truck, maybe $50,000, $75,000. He's already told me his father has houses. His father preaches at a church, like a part-time, they have him preach every so often. So I look him up online, and he's a sex offender in Tyler, Texas. And they're already trying to bait me and all that, so I know what they're trying to do. Yet they have a sex offender that's highly successful, living a great life. And actually preaching in a church. He had sex with a 16-year-old, and he's preaching in a church. They're full of shit down there. Spend all day baiting a normal person and elevating the sex offender and saying they're going after the sex offender. For all I know, they're all narcotics distributors, including the cops. Regular. No, Hashem goes, look this guy up. I look him up. He's a sex offender. I looked up online. I forgot how I got his name. I guess maybe the kid told me. I can't remember. Because the kid, he was really a good kid. He had trouble, probably using drugs. I can't even remember what it was. And I say kid, he's over 20, he's one. Right? But he's not much. His father was going to try to restore his life. Because he felt very blessed that his father could. I think maybe even try to get him to live in one of his properties or something. And when he shows up and he starts acting Mr. Shitty, I'm like, he's one of them. So again, things look like they're going to work. The weather's going to warm up. The surges are going to start. So we need to hopefully adjudicate things before the surges. So you'll know how much housing, what we have to calculate and figure out is how long we have to keep each person or each classification of person based upon what the court. Because I think maybe if you articulate the communicable disease thing along with a few other things, don't just do that one. Say that this is our problem, Your Honor, and this is really what we're doing. It's not only the communicable disease thing. We have this other thing going on, this national emergency. And this national emergency means this. And we have to get these numbers down to even help the immigrant that we could possibly keep down the road once we get those numbers down. I mean, it's put this nation into massive debt. All right, stay peaceful. Praise God in all that you do.